a lot of relationships, I think, fall into traps when we think we have to have the same passions. We have to do the same things together. You know, you could potentially expect your partner, your wife, to listen because it's a podcast that's loved by millions all over the world. It's helping so many people. And you could potentially be offended that how come all these other people who I don't know are listening, but my dear wife is not? And I'm not sure if this is in the book or whether I heard you say this in another conversation a few years ago, but I think you said 1 year after you got married, you got a good break in your work life, like a really good break. And you got the impression that your wife wasn't that happy about it. I wonder if you could explain that situation, because I think it really speaks to what you just said about your podcast and your first book, and your wife not reading them or not listening, because I think it gets us into a lot of trouble in our relationships when we feel our partner has to do and love the same things as us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because it's something people struggle with. And I want to tell you my example. I also want to tell you about a client I worked with because I've been doing so much relationship coaching over the last few years, hence this book as well. But yeah, with my wife and I, you know, when I want to go back a bit more. When I met my wife, when we first started dating, which is nearly 10 years ago now, I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money. Actually, I was in £18,000 worth of debt because of my student loan. I was getting turned down and was turned down by about 40 companies. This is when I'm dating my wife, and she knows all of this is going on. My wife comes from a wonderful family, and she's dating a guy who has just been a monk for 3 years, doesn't have any job prospects, has no money, and is in debt, and doesn't know what to do because 40 companies have said no. And my wife chose to be with that guy. And I like to remind myself, I like to remind others, I like to remind friends and family of that, because a lot of the time today people will be like, oh, Radhi, you're so lucky like to be with Jay. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm lucky because she chose to be with me when all I had to offer was myself. And I'm almost getting teary because it's so real, because my wife chose to be with me when all I had to offer was myself. And she backed that guy. And so when I look at it now, and when I think back to that, when I first started to experience success in my career, I would almost metaphorically hold up my trophies and metaphorically hold up my achievements to her and say, we should be celebrating this. Look what I did. Look what I achieved. Look where I got to. Like, let's celebrate how amazing I am and what I've done. And she wouldn't respond to that. Like, that wouldn't bring her alive. And often I'd sit there and I'd think, well, maybe she doesn't care about me. She doesn't love me. She's not celebrating me. She doesn't read my stuff. She doesn't listen to me. And I started to realize that I wanted my wife to love me for what I achieved when she loved me for who I was. And now when I ask you that question logically, do you want to be loved for your achievements, or do you want to be loved for your character? Which one do you want? It's so obvious. It's so glaringly obvious. But I think we want to be loved. Our ego, actually, that's what it is. Our ego wants to be loved for our achievements. But our heart wants to be loved for our characters. And when our ego overtakes our heart, the ego demands that respect and adoration, when all the heart wants is true affection for who you are. And I saw this play out with one of my clients who's a speaker and an author as well. And he was saying to me that he goes, Jay, when I go and speak on stage, I have so many women who are attracted to me, who want to get to know me, who adore me, who respect me, who compliment me, who think I'm incredible. And he goes, when I go home, my wife doesn't even care about that. And so I went through this same process with him where I was like, do you want to be loved for your performance, Or do you want to be loved as a person? And I think when he sat with that, he realized that there will always be people who love his performance, but they may not love him as a person. But someone who loves you as a person, it doesn't matter whether they love your performance or not, because they're with you for the right reasons. They're with you for the deepest truths of who you are. And so to me, that was a big revelation, and it saved so much stress and anxiety that I had, because now I take pride in the fact that I'm with someone who has my back no matter what happens, whether this stays, goes away, whether I'm relevant, irrelevant, insignificant, significant. My wife doesn't care about that stuff. Isn't that love? Like, isn't that what we really want? Sorry for getting emotional. I don't think I've ever got emotional in an interview. You just really like, we're not even in the same room. And you fully got me. I was like literally on the verge of tears there, but yeah.